Hey everyone, Phreak here. 9.3 is upon us, and I managed to record it, or at least start recording this video, within 2 hours of the patch notes going up. This is probably a new personal record, but we're here. I'm going to make sure my phone is not going to make any noise. Unless it goes for over 3 hours, my alarm won't go off. We should be fine. Okay, so 9.3 is happening, and I really like the patch. The big, huge thing about this is they are doing the crit item rework. There's some other small things going on around it as well. Overall, looks pretty positive. So let's get into it. 9.3 is happening. It's a big deal. One thing they are doing is they are hitting four, or I probably could say five, of the highest presence pro champions, which is a good thing because holy moly, they're really up there and they're really strong. So first off, Aatrox is getting a pretty big reshape. Umbral Dash no longer heals versus non-champions. And as compensation, the health regen of the champion goes up. We have math on that. And then alternatively, or I should say additionally, as a different sort of set of changes, you can no longer really swing 2 dashes back to back. Now, this is affected by CDR. So at max rank, 5 seconds can become 3 seconds or slightly lower if you're running inspiration. That should be enough to, if you space your stuff out right, get 2 dashes during a full combo. But the all-in potential is definitely down a lot. Your agency as an Aatrox is definitely going down. That said, getting to dash every 9 seconds instead of every 26 is a very big deal. In fact, even if you were spamming E on cooldown, every 9 seconds is still faster than every 10 you were getting a charge. So I know a lot of people are seeing this as RIP Aatrox giant nerf, and to be fair, it totally might be. It might end up that as the dust settles, Aatrox is far weaker. That could totally be true, but do not undersell how much faster he is getting an extra dash. You can use a dash in an all-in, or burn out on your all-in, and get another dash within about 4 seconds because you're going to have a Black Cleaver. This does matter. There's going to be some element of this. And there's going to be some element of relearning Aatrox because you can't double dash during a combo, but you want to use it frequently for the gameplay, right? To get this cooldown kicking again. So this will be a learning experience. Let's look at the health regen difference. So here is health per minute, which is my default regen stat. I actually think League of Legends should be sort of spoken of in health per minute because to me that makes more sense. You can even do health per 30 seconds because that's once per minion wave. But anyway, it's a random aside. Either way, he used to regen 1 health per second or 60 per minute and got to roughly double that by the end of the game. And he lost his spell vamp against minions. So the regen, you can see, right, 1.6 to 2 a quarter. The big thing, though, is I did math, and I have it here in the far right column. How much health did he get back by landing a full combo of 3 sweet spots onto a single minion? Now, of course, you won't always hit every minion with every sweet spot, or not even every single Q. But if you were going to manage to 3 sweet spot a single, let's say, cannon minion, how much health did that give you? And it was not a lot for most of the early game. Up through level 7, it's 13 per minion you manage to full combo. Now, if you did manage to somehow full combo the entire melee minion wave, then okay, that's 39 health. You got 39 health per melee minion wave, which spawns twice a minute. Well, you get about twice that back as health regen. So that lines up pretty cleanly. Sure, by later on in the game, and especially as you're buying more attack damage, that starts to change more and more, but overall, this seems to be a fairly accurate compensation, and honestly, possibly a buff. Again, because you're not always going to get all 3 sweet spots on a bunch of minions. Sometimes your Qs are used somewhere else. Sometimes you're zoned off of the minion wave. A lot of times when we watch Aatrox's last hit under turret, they intentionally miss the sweet spot and deal minor damage to 3 minions once, which makes the rest of them auto-attackable. So in bad matchups, you weren't vamping anyway because you have to use your Q in a low damage way to last hit well. Like, there's a lot of reasons why this can totally end up being a buff to Aatrox. And there's reasons why this can be not this specifically, but this can be a buff to Aatrox. So ultimately what I'm going to say is I don't think this is RIP Aatrox. I think this is a reshape. It will take time to learn how to play around this, but people will be pleasantly surprised how much this matters. Because this is a pretty meaningful amount of health and does compensate pretty well for how much healing you're losing. That's my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm underestimating how much attack damage he buys, and the healing is much higher than I'm postulating. Keep in mind that, of course, he's probably running some attack damage in either runes or items very early on, and this healing will go up in the real world. Either way, let's move on to the next champion. Next up is Akali, and Akali, real quick point up, by the way, that Aatrox was a 96% pro play presence champion across 9.2. And yet was 47% win rate across most of his roles. It's actually lower than that in the jungle, but a 47 top laner to 47 mid laner. So he was still, even after all this time, people have learned the champion, right? He's been in post rework form for, since Rift Rivals, so about 6 months. He's still sub 50, so this really is a pro-only champion right now, and they're trying to do some pro-pointed nerfs, which is like buffing base stats like health regen is a really good way to bring them back up for general play, and you can kind of diminish some of the pro presence, so I like that. I think that's a rational set of changes. Next up is Akali. Akali is 95% presence across pro, so despite the most recent round of nerfs, she's still being seen everywhere. She's actually even in a worse spot in solo queue, 47% top lane, 45% mid. I didn't track her ban rate when I was looking up all my data last night, but I trust that her ban rate is probably going down a little bit, but not a ton. I think Akali is still viewed as very, very frustrating. So here's the big changes. Health regen up quite a bit, but the 5-point strike high energy heal is gone. Here's the math on that. Old health per minute, new health per minute. Of course, this matters more in the early game than in the late game. And keep in mind, by mid to late game, she's got a Gunblade, and she and probably Aatrox as well are running the Spell Vamp rune in the first place. They're running Ravenous Hunter. But if you are on base stats and you pressed Q, here's how much you would heal with your Q. It scaled from 17 to eventually 72 with your maxed out base AD. Keep in mind the actual healing is higher when you buy any items ever. And again, keep in mind that she's going to buy Gunblade at some point. Now, also keep in mind not every Q is going to heal. It's only when you have close to max energy. From sort of my brief looks at it, it seemed like roughly half to a third of Akali Qs were healing. But either way, you're getting 30 extra health per minute. And so essentially, if you were using Q maxed out once per wave, this is a nerf in all cases. Just straight up. 30 health per minute is not a ton. It matters, it exists. I'm glad she's reading more than 1 health per second now natively. But this will destroy her laning phase by a lot. She's going to be much, much, much more easily poked out. Now, that said, there's a small chance that in some elos, this is still a buff to Akali, because at a certain point, people are bad at the champion and don't use the Q heal well. They don't remain at high energy and get their health back. So there's cases where this will end up being a buff. I doubt it will overall be a buff to the champion. She will definitely lose some pro presence. Laning phase is very pro sensitive. This will matter quite a bit. Her Shroud cooldown is actually getting nerfed, and it's no longer going to reveal or prevent turrets from revealing. I'm glad this is happening. I still maintain that my ideal world for stealth is that turrets always see you if you're invisible, and champion abilities no longer break stealth. So like Lee Sin can't E to find Shaco, and Shaco gets to be actually invisible in his matchups. Turrets matter, champions don't. That's my view, personally, but whatever. Because now, Twilight Shroud still blocks champion reveal, but now doesn't block turret reveal. So it's still different from other forms of invisibility, which is fine. Maybe it's allowed to be different from other forms of invisibility. I understand that, like, yes, Akali's combat pattern is slower than other assassins, so she actually needs the time to work, and I get that. Either way, this will drop her a fair bit. She will be pretty well sledgehammered. She's going to remain sub 50, obviously. People were saying, oh, she's going to be sub 40. No, she won't. These nerfs are not big enough to make her sub 40. They're just not. These nerfs are not that gigantic. So, either way, she's definitely weaker. Okay. Let's move on. Next up is Camille. Now, Camille is certainly up there in pro play. Across 9.2, honestly, the more recent nerfs have seemed to have some effects on her. Across 9.2, she's only 50% presence in pro, which honestly, I don't even think is too high. I think any champion that lives at 50% doesn't need pro-facing nerfs. Because that means you have two different teams who are playing champ select, and neither one wants her half the time. And then the other half the time, maybe only one wanted her. Or one of the teams decided to do a preemptive ban just in case the other team wanted to play aggressively. Like, I do want to kind of point out that bans being part of pro play presence tends to overinflate the value of champions. Now, certainly some are really overpowered in pro, like Aatrox, Akali, Cassiopeia by far, Urgot is up there. Absolutely, don't get me wrong. Like, there are definitely some worthy bans out there. But keep in mind that Champion Select in Pro is about guessing, and even in solo queue is about guessing what you think your opponents might play and do well with. And so you might just throw out bans because you don't have other better ideas, because nothing else is that common, right? Like, there's going to be a 6th most popular champion in League of Legends, and that will just absorb bans because of the 6th most popular. Because you don't know for sure if they want to play Kai'Sa or Sivir, so why waste a ban? But you know Camille's pretty likely. Either way, 50% presence, so, fairly high. One of the jungles that are definitely up there is Camille. One thing I do find really interesting, though, is Camille jungle is a 47% win rate jungler. Camille top is a 50% win rate top laner. So it's very, very strange that this is still the sort of disconnect that's happening. But Camille jungle is the one that people are concerned about and playing, and yet is not as powerful as Camille top. So this will do a lot to get people off of Camille jungle. Her pick rate and win rate will drop a lot in the jungle, probably 2% win rate down, 1% win rate down. I think she's still clear, but we'll see what happens. People will find a way. Yeah, you'll take some more damage from the camps, but I actually trust you can find a way to do it, in my opinion. But Camille top gets to remain a 50% win rate top laner, which seems fine. And Camille tops are happy that they get to play their champion. So this seems like a good change, and I'm happy about it. Next up, big hits to Cassiopeia. She is losing 0 to 40 damage on her Q, but gaining a 0.1 AP ratio. She's also gaining extra mana on the W. The damage rank up on the W is going down pretty substantially. So here is, scrolling down, here is Cassiopeia Q and W damage. So the damage goes down to about down by 16% at level 9. Keep in mind that the good Cassiopeia builds, the one that are winning the most, is always Q max and a W max. E second or E first is wrong power-wise. Right, it's trying to reshape that a little bit. They keep nerfing W's rank up incentive. They keep trying to nerf Q's rank up incentive, so that there is a reason to go back to being the DPS mage with E as opposed to the long range zoning mage that I think is a less interesting playstyle for Cassiopeia. So 60% damage down on the Q is certainly pretty meaningful. You can see how much ability power it takes to buff the Q right here in this column. Technically, level 1 Cassiopeia does more damage than before, so does level 2. Arguably level 3 as well, if you go 1-1-1. But it takes 100, 200, 300, 400 ability power to make up for the damage loss. So if you're doing Riley's Liandry's and playing long-range poke with Merlin Omicron, you're never going to reach that number. And so if you're playing current version Cassiopeia, where you're playing for the dots, you're playing for kiting, you're not going to meet your old damage thresholds. The W is certainly going to be a lot weaker when the max damage goes up to 200 instead of 300. That's a really, really big deal. This is certainly going to nerf her top end build. It's not going to change her Emax build very much. If you're doing 1 point on W, it's the same ability. If you're doing 1 point Q until level 8, you're barely seeing the damage nerfs by certainly 10 at that point, but you're starting to build ability power by that point. So if you ever go back to Emax into Q on Cassiopeia, it's going to be a lot better. I still feel like Q first is optimal. W versus E second, I'm not sure. The W nerf honestly might not be enough to change that. Cassiopeia might still be a kite mage for a very long time. And a lot of that is because E's rank up is not good. The amount of mana you get back does not scale with rank up. The amount of base damage it deals does not scale with rank up. The AP ratio does not scale with rank up. The cooldown does not scale with rank up. You scale the only 2 champion poisoned damage, and guess what? They're only poisoned when hit by Q or W, which means those ranks also matter. And I'm glad people figured out that QW was the right build. It is a less interesting build, so I'm glad that these changes are happening. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, we got to figure that out. So either way, Cassiopeia will definitely lose quite a bit. She is the 99% pro presence. Will drop quite a bit here. We'll still see her in pro. We'll still see her in solo queue. I think this QW build will still be above 50% win rate because she's 55 or something with that right now. But good nerfs in the right direction and big enough nerfs that this will be felt. Next up is Irelia. Now, Irelia, I think, is mostly gone from pro play. She's around, but she's 34% presence. And that to me is a completely reasonable. There's no reason to nerf this champion in pro. She could stay 34 for the rest of the year, and that means, you know, watching LCS, she's seen in like 1 or 2 games a day. Irelia's a fun champion. That's cool with me. I think that's totally reasonable. What's also interesting is I don't think Irelia super... Well, actually, I do think she needs changes. So here's the thing about Irelia is Irelia, I think, is fine in pro. At this point, she's fine. But she is a 45% win rate top laner and a 43% win rate mid laner. She is just destroyed in solo queue. And again, this is a champion who's been around for a fair while now, right? Irelia Work's been out for a bit, about half a year or so. I forget if it was before or after Aatrox. I've actually forgotten. But she's been around for long enough that like most of the growth curve has happened for players. Like it will still trickle up a little bit, but she's fairly well mastered and is 45% win rate in her best role. And people are finally picking up, by the way, that she has been nerfed. Her ban rate for like not counting 9.2, the last 3 patches was like 30%, which is pretty high. Last couple of days, it's fallen to 12%. So most of the people who were like, oof, I don't like Irelia, have stopped caring. Her ban rate has fallen. Her win rate is low. Honestly, if we did nothing to Irelia for a very long time, her win rate would eventually climb because only good Irelias would play her. The ban rate would fall because she wasn't getting picked as much, and she's like people are realizing she's not winning anymore. And you could simply wait this out. That said, she would probably still only stabilize around 45 or 46. And so what I think is happening here is basically they're trying to kind of drop out some mechanics, and people should have better ways to deal with Irelia. And so what I think is going to try to happen is they're going to try to raise her baseline power level, but make her less frustrating. And through those things, allow her to be closer to 50% while not being a so hated champion. And much like the Akali Shroud under turret, I think these are good changes to lower frustration of the champion. So her health growth is going up by 10, and her base armor is going up by 2. Here is that durability here. She's going to go up to about 2200 health at max level. Her armor being 2 higher means her physical durability goes up about 10% overall. This is, of course, counting the health changes as well. She's up to 8% more durable against magic and 1 to 10% more durable against physical. Right. So these are certainly they're buffs in all cases, but slightly more buffs towards physical damage. That seems pretty reasonable. They are changing around the passive buffs on Ionian Fervor. Instead of gaining essentially bonus damage per stack, she's getting attack speed per stack. Instead of gaining bonus attack speed at max bonus, she's getting bonus attack damage at max bonus. It's on hit damage, but it's almost the same thing. I want to point out that this is almost identical to what 4 stacks of this would be. And I want to point out that this is identical. This is identical to, yeah, it's like close to this. Okay, so I might have done this wrong. I actually might have my numbers slightly off when we actually put this up for realsies, because I think I chose 40, 50, 60 in my chart and not 30, 40, 50 in my chart. So there's going to be slight discrepancies here. So here is Irelia's auto attack DPS at the old 4 stack mark and the new 4 stack mark versus the old 4 stack, which is maxed anyway, and the new 5 stack mark. This is pretty close to accurate. She's losing some DPS here. Because overall, if you don't hit max stacks, which 4 stacks is not max stacks anymore, you're not getting the bonuses onto it, and so her DPS was higher. You have to get to 5 stacks to be max Irelia. And now when you get to 5 stacks, I mean, these numbers are basically identical, right? You're 1 DPS off at level 1 and 2 DPS off at level 18. But I think I thought that the old 4 stack passive was 40 to 60, not that the old stack passive was 30 to 50. So I think it's actually a small DPS increase to the tune of, well, going from 30 to 40% bonus attack speed is like maybe 8% more DPS. So this should all be green and probably pretty positive. I don't think it's quite as positive as this is negative, but it's close. So that's my bad. I will update the graphic in the Imager album. The link will be in the description, and you can see how much different it actually is, or if I did the math even wrong at all. But I will double check that and put it back up. Next up, though, there was a change to Blade Surge. I think they did go too far on the Blade Surge damage to minions thing. So here's the new table. Here's 9.1 before the change, 9.2, which did change, and 9.3, which is live. So if you go from 9.1 to 9.3, which is double damage versus bonus to minions, you have a pretty good buff in the early game, actually. Her landing phase is going to be better. And then as time goes on, especially as she buys more attack damage, it's going to be worse and worse and worse and worse, because of course it is. Obviously, it's a straight buff from current form. It's about 11% better. Cool. Okay, that's no surprise, but there's the math. Defiant Dance is going to reduce half of all physical damage and not reduce magic damage. That's interesting. This, of course, throws her away from mid lane entirely. It makes her not a good blind pick either, because you just play Kennen or something and her W does nothing. I actually do like these sorts of changes. I think it's cool to put Irelia as an anti-AD kind of champion. Yeah, I think it's a good idea. This is certainly one that can also lower her in pro and actually make people feel good about picking against her in solo queue, where it's like, yeah, normally I play Renekton top lane, but I will also learn Teemo for this matchup. I think this is positive, right? This will tend to reduce frustration because there's someone on the team who can deal with her. Now, I think this will still overall be, as a full set of changes, this will probably end up... I mean, this is a strict buff. This is a strict nerf. This is a strict buff. This is, I would argue, a strict nerf. Hitboxes being better is nice. There's a decent chance Irelia goes up in win rate because of the durability bump. This is a pretty meaningful durability bump, especially this combined with this being better against physical damage. I think her top lane win rate goes up from 45 to maybe 46. Unless I'm really underestimating how hard it is to get to 5 stacks, but I don't think that's true. The per stack benefit, like 1 stack, 1, 2, and 3 stacks, is very close in power level. This little bit of attack speed is pretty close to what this attack damage gives in DPS gain. It's just simply that when you hit 4 stacks, you're missing a power spike. Yeah, but overall, she's going to lose even more mid lane win rate for sure. And, that's fine. She's off of mid lane. That's okay. More VO lines play when you encounter people in the game. That's cool. That's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that. Okay, time for the next big update in this thing. Oh man, Marksman items are in. And they want people to be excited about their core build again. They want to be more satisfying in normal play. And you can fit defense into your core builds in ways that maybe make sense. Okay, well, the crit cloak is back. And we have Infinity Edge being reworked. And instead of reading through all these changes like this, I'm instead going to show you in my little charty thing. Okay, so i.e., instead of 70 attack damage is 80 attack damage. And right, the item by itself was 70 damage and a unique passive. And then here's how gold efficient it was if you had bought a Zeal. Well, only 90%. Okay, with rapid fire cannon, okay, it's finally gold efficient at 107. 2 rapid fire cannons, okay, I finally maxed out my bonus crit, 119%. So i.e. needed to wait until you got pretty far into your build until the item was worth doing at all. But it also had this extra unique passive that I think people just did not value well. I think this was actually an insanely strong unique passive, and I feel like it got overlooked a lot. And people just thought crit marksmen were bad. But I don't think that's true. Everyone thought you had to rush Stormrazor, and you could only ever go first item Stormrazor. If you didn't go first item Stormrazor, you were bad. And then it took too long to get to 2 Zeal upgrades, and so Marksmen are just way too weak for way too long. And really, you could have gone Zeal, BF pickaxe, upgrade Shiv, upgrade IE, buy rapid fire. At 3 items, you're already 100% crit, but whatever. Doesn't matter. Those days are behind us. Ultimately, the item rework did not do good things for the game, so I'm glad it's getting reverted. But the item by itself is now gold efficient. 80 attack damage, 25 crit by itself is gold efficient. And by the way, 25% crit damage, going from 2x to 2.25x, is mathematically equivalent to getting 25% more crit chance. Expected value-wise is the same thing. Now, if you're going to overkill things, or if something was just 1 crit away from death, yes, there's opportunistic reasons why it can be different, but expected value, it is the same thing. So essentially, 25% more crit chance is about 6% more crit chance, and so it's 119% gold efficient to just straight up buy an Infinity Edge. And guess what, friends? We are back to buying IE first item, and I will show you more of why very, very soon. If you have a Zeal, it's even more. Rapid fire, 2 rapid fires, 3 rapid fires. I'm just using them as the analog for any generic crit item. But now that new crit items all give 25% crit, this is just slowly how much more you're getting. And eventually, with a max build, if you somehow run a build where you're I'm going Hurricane and Shiv and rapid fire, or Phantom Dancer in there or whatever, and it's time to buy an item, well, IE at full efficiency is 1.5 efficiency. There's the lever. If super high-end game builds for crit marksman are too good, it's an easy lever to pull. Make it more expensive. You can lower this from 25% to 20%. Who knows? But I'm glad crit damage is back. I think it's still at a number that feels satisfying at 2.25. I'm actually glad it's not so high that it's this gigantic 2.5 crit, because that did get a bit too bursty. I'm glad that sort of like the end result is we got close. So that's fine. I'm also glad it's 25% crit, not 20% crit, because you get slightly better, you get closer to the average value more often. So that's good. All right, moving on. Zeal gets more efficient. 100 gold chopped off the cost. Goes from 90% efficiency to 98% efficiency. Zeal's in a pretty good spot as a result of this. And now you can feel good about buying a Zeal again, because for a while you really couldn't. And now you can, and that's a good thing. I'm glad you can feel good about buying Zeal. It means that buying IE and getting a Zeal right away, you feel pretty good about this, because your IE gets 10% more gold efficiency, and your Zeal was only at 98 anyway. So really, really smooth power curve. Really smooth power curve. Next up, they reworked. Ooh, this barely fits on screen. They reworked all of the Zeal upgrades. Rapid Fire Cannon is the same item, except that it lost 5 crit chance, and it lost 200 gold. Now, 5 crit and 200 gold cost the same amount of money, which means you're still paying 650 for the energized passive, right? These Zeal upgrades are not gold efficient without the passive. You need to want the bonus range. You need to want the bonus proc damage. Otherwise, this item is inefficient. Rushing Rapid Fire or Shiv or Hurricane first are really not great pickups. Shiv got slightly bigger changes. It gained 5 attack speed in addition to its other changes. So instead of the old Shiv where you paid 528 for the unique passive, you're only paying 403 for the unique passive because of the 5 attack speed gained. Much like Rapid Fire, the gold is down by 200, the crit is down by 5. That's going to be the same across all these items. So Shiv is now hyper efficient. You're only paying 400 for Chain Lightning versus 650 for range. That seems pretty reasonable. Getting the extra 10% attack speed on this thing, as Rapid Fire has 30 and Shiv has 40, that feels pretty good. Next up, we have Hurricane, which is even more gold efficient. It's keeping its 40 attack speed. It's also losing 5 crit. It's also 200 gold cheaper. But because the base move speed of the item is 7 instead of 5, it's even more gold efficient. And so you're still only paying the 324 gold for Wind's Fury, but 324 for the unique passive is really, really, really cheap. And so what's interesting is I actually like this, that it's sort of getting more obvious that you're paying for the unique passive, that the smaller the item gets while kind of staying roughly the same efficiency, the more obvious that what you're paying for is indeed the rapid fire energize, the hurricane bolts or whatever, right? Paying 600 gold on a 1,000 gold item is a lot of that item, right? Anyway, so you're paying 650 for range, 400 for lightning, or 300 for bolts. 300 for bolts is really cheap. It's always been 300 for bolts. I think Hurricane has been criminally underbought for far too long, but whatever. Final rework is Phantom Dancer, and it's a very large rework, okay? Like the other ones, it's also 2,600 gold. PD finally is the same cost as the other items. I'm happy about this. My slightly neurotic pieces of my brain are happy that they're all the same price now. So again, 25 crit like the other ones, 5 move speed like the other ones, 2,600 gold like the other ones. The attack speed is low. It's down to rapid fire cannon levels of low, right? It's this 30% attack speed that rapid fire cannon has. So PD is no longer the attack speed item. So it's basically you have rapid fire cannon tier and hurricane tier for attack speed now. They all have the same crit. They all have almost the same move speed as for hurricane. They all have the same cost. So you're paying for the unique passives. Cool. Love it. What's going on with this item? Well, it's even keeping Spectral Waltz, 7% bonus move speed in certain cases. Okay, you're paying 277 for 7% move speed. That's like, if it were on all the time, that's what the cost would be. But instead of getting 12% damage reduction, you get an on-demand shield. And I ran some math here real quick, okay? If you have 2,000 max HP, 12% damage reduction is roughly the same. It's roughly the same as having 747 more health. 747 gold worth of health. Because it's like 250 HP or something like that, right? 300, something around there. Either way, it's about 750 gold worth of health to have 12% DR in a 1v1, right? So if you're trying to like not die to Zed, old Phantom Dancer was worth about 750 HP. Just, that's the math. New Phantom Dancer Lifeline is 700 gold worth of health. Not 700 health, 700 gold worth of health. So about 280 HP or 750 gold worth of health. Got to correct myself because I said it wrong. New Lifeline is worth 240 to 600 health on the shield, which is worth between 640 and 1600 gold worth of health. And this works against everyone. This works in 1v1. Now, certainly, Lament is on at any duel, anytime you fight, and when you sustain back up, it's on for the next time, and you fight. This Lifeline only pops when you're getting chunked. But what's cool is this item, to me, feels competitive. It is the same shape of item as Rapid Fire Cannon, the exact same stat profile. And instead of range and some burst damage, and you're paying 650 for the entire thing here, you are getting Spectral Waltz for kiting the 1v1 and Lifeline for the same price. So this is now your comparison of the 1-to-1. It is the same stat profile as Rapid Fire Cannon. You're going to pick the safe poke range or the YOLO fight me, it's Zed, it's Talon, it's Callista, it's all these folks. I'm going to survive it. This feels like a great comparison. I love that the Zeal upgrades are more similarly shaped. Their costs are the same. Their stat profiles, outside of 2 cases, are identical. You're paying the same amount of gold for a unique passive because the rest of the stats are the same. And now you're directly comparing unique passives. This, to me, was always what I wanted to see out of these items. They're all the same item. You're shopping for unique passives. This is what I want. This is what I'm glad exists now. The, of course, difference being that you get 10% more attack speed by going the greedier items. You don't get range or a shield. You have to play in the normal range that everyone else plays without defensive tools. All right, well, we're bribing you with more attack speed. We're bribing you with Chain Lightning that can crit. We're bribing you with 2 40% damage bolts. This seems reasonable. I like these changes. I still want to point out, these items are not by themselves gold efficient. You're paying 400 gold for the Chain Lightning, which is, hey, maybe worth it. Maybe it's the right amount of gold you think is what you want to pay for this. But I'm just saying that on a pure stat basis, you would not buy a static shiv and then another static shiv. That would be a bad choice. All right. I'm going to skip that for now because we've got one other big change to the crit items, and it's Stormrazor. And Stormrazor is getting a gigantic change as well. And once again, I think it's almost easier to read in this format. It's still attack damage, it's still attack speed, it still costs gold, but instead of being gold efficient and really good at that, and I think people people eventually realized that Stormrazor was gold efficient and it was fine, and you could buy it first item. Here is, by the way, how much damage a Stormrazor would deal. I chose Tristana with no runes or other items and a Stormrazor. And at level 9 with just a Stormrazor, it did 57 bonus damage. With a Zeal upgrade at level 11, it did 104 bonus damage. And at level 13 with a finished Rapid Fire Cannon, it did 155 bonus damage. So this is like what the item gave you. And it gave you like the haste when you did it as well, etc., etc. Now, it is far less gold efficient. Far less gold efficient. I want to point out that the added 65 burst damage, that is flat, by the way. If we go and look at this, new Stormrazor, right? Down in stats, up in cost. Movement, basic attacks generate energized stacks, and it deals 65 bonus damage on hit and slows instead of this old amount of damage, which is in most cases higher and hasted. The slowing is arguably stronger, don't get me wrong, but so the gold efficiency in the item is lower. The added damage in most cases is lower. You get a slow instead of a haste, but you get a buff to your other energized effects. Your other energized effects are 30% stronger, which means that the bonus damage that Chain Lightning gives, this 140, becomes another 42 on top of that. Now it's 182. And I'm still pretty sure Static Shiv can crit. So if you get lucky, it's a lot of damage. It also means your Chain Lightning slows, because this slow on Stormrazor, your energized effects are more effective and slow their targets. So now if you go for the greedy build, if you say I'm going IE into Shiv and then we're going to go right away to Stormrazor, you have a slowing bonus damage Chain Lightning that might crit them for even more damage. That's really, really, really good. That's really, really powerful. That's really cool. But of course, yeah, you lose this bonus damage and you lose the move speed. 20 move speed for 0.75 seconds is probably always worse than a... it's actually pretty close because 40% decaying over 1 second is kind of like a 20% slow for 1 second in most instances. I actually love decaying slows. They feel really impactful. And it lets you put high numbers on tooltips that feel good while not actually putting it so much CC. It also means that you can like stack slows in more interesting ways and not feel so bad about them. I think decaying slows are a mechanic that should exist more in League of Legends. Much like 3-hit passives. I think decaying slows are great. Anyway, that's a different topic. But I want to point out really, really strongly, this is not an item with crit on it. It is not an item with crit on it. And it is not gold efficient until you're amplifying your other energize effects. You are paying 550 gold for the energize bonus. Much like Stormrazor or Rapid Fire Cannon, where you're paying 650 gold for your energize bonus. You are paying about as much for energize as you are with Rapid Fire Cannon, or arguably with Phantom Dancer as well. So you need a reason to want this stuff. And I would argue this energize bonus, 65 damage and a 40% slow, is not as good as more damage and a bunch of range. I would take, even if they had the same stat profile coming into this, I would still take Rapid Fire over Stormrazor. Once you have Rapid Fire or Shiv, now you consider it. But I wouldn't buy it until you have one of those items. That's my opinion. Okay, there's more. The other big change is indeed Essence Reaver / Spear of Shogen. The old Essence Reaver from 9.2 is getting split into 2 items. Basically, everyone remembers old Essence Reaver from last year that converted crit chance into CDR. That's kind of back. And it's sort of like 9.2 Essence Reaver. But also, 9.2 Essence Reaver is becoming Spear of Shogen for fighters. Okay, so the old Reaver 9.2 was damage, CDR, and mana. Mana refund and auto attack. And the Essence Flare when you pressed your ultimate. Now, it's still attack damage. It's still cooldown reduction. But it's crit chance, right? It's like the old version. 3,200 gold, which is very close to what IE costs. And it's absurdly gold efficient. If you want to rush ER as your cool item, if you want to rush ER instead of Infinity Edge, you can go for it. Now keep in mind, you're still getting 25 crit, you're still spending 3,200 gold, but you're getting 60 attack damage instead of Infinity Edge giving you 80 attack damage. So you're trading 20 AD and crit damage, right? 20 AD and crit damage in order to get CDR. Now, that might be correct for you. That might be fine. I'm just saying that that is a very obvious and stark trade-off, and I do love that you can start with either one, that this item is still, by itself, with stats you care about, gold efficient, right? This is 113%. You're going to feel really good about your first item as a crit marksman. And if you're the caster crit marksman who wants an amped mana refund and who wants 20 CDR so that you can go be Sivir and be crazy, that's there for you. This is a really exciting first item. I'm excited to buy this as my first item and go ham on people. This is great. I'm down. This is wonderful. So this is cool. I like this a lot. I like this a lot. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. And you're going to transition into building crit and crit and crit. Also, every AD carry I ever play, Essence Reaver is going to be in my 6-item build. It was in my old 6-item builds as well. In fact, it was in my 5-item builds. I would almost always, if I'm playing like Kog'Maw or Tristana or almost any one of these champions, I would build Reaver over my second Zeal upgrade because the value of getting flat attack damage is really high when you've already got Zerk Greaves and attack speed from other sources. People were tending to underrate how valuable just flat AD is. I haven't done that math in more than a year because the items have changed up, but I'm still pretty sure that there's a good chance that Essence Reaver itself is a DPS optimal buy over a third Zeal item. That said, you've got Phantom Dancer fighting for your attention. You've got Stormrazor fighting your attention. I think there's going to be a lot of really interesting choices in mid to end game builds. I think the way this all ended up, especially where Phantom Dancer ended up, and especially with you actually wanting to buy 4 crit items, i.e. Zeal upgrade, Essence Reaver, or Zeal upgrade, boots, and you pick either lifesteal or more self-shielding or armor penetration with Lord Dominic's, right? Choice. Suddenly, choice. I'm excited about that. Okay, so that's the big thing on crit items. There's also the conversion for all those Jaxes and Rivens out there. I am scared for this item. So old Essence Reaver, attack damage, CDR, mana, hyper gold efficient, also mana refund, also Essence Flare. Of course, it was a good item. Now, there's no durability on this at all, and yet the Rivens and Jaxes and whatnot felt very good about buying this item. All the mana stuff went away, right? The mana is gone, the mana refund's gone. The gold efficiency and cost get nerfed a bit because that's fair. It loses 15 attack damage. It keeps the CDR. It gets 250 health, which is not probably enough compensation for the damage and mana lost gold-wise, but if you're Riven, this is more gold efficient for you. So, I mean, like, imagine, right? Like, if you're Riven and you drop 420 gold off this, you're over-efficient by 125 gold. You're over-efficient by 67 gold. So, yeah, even for someone like Riven, this is actually less efficient by itself because of how much value the attack damage has. So that's kind of worth pointing out right away. Even if you didn't care about the mana, it's technically less efficient. If you did care about the mana, it's definitely less efficient. It is losing the mana refund, but you still get, well, Essence Flare is now called like Draconic Awakening or like Awakened Dragon. It's on the tooltip. We can read it in a second. But yeah, Spear of Shogen is straight up efficient and gives you the cooldown thing. That seems really good. This is going to be, I think, an exciting item, even though like I think it's objectively weaker. Or weaker in most cases, not objectively, in most cases weaker. I think this is a more exciting item just because it fits the stat profile that is satisfying. One thing I've definitely noticed when I still see people who think that they wish Zephyr was back, the stat profile on Zephyr was mentally satisfying, but no one does the math and realizes the item is hot garbage. Zephyr is not a good item. Stop wishing it was back. Actually, I wish it was back so my opponents would buy it and I would win more games against them. Go ahead and bring back Zephyr, Riot. I want to win more games. Zephyr is garbage. That item is trash. You should have never bought it in your life, and you're bad for thinking you wanted to. And I'm glad it's gone for that reason. Either way, I think Spear of Shogen is cool just because it now like feels like it fits, you know? So let's reread the patch notes, make sure I didn't miss anything, these parts of it, right? So total cost unchanged, 10 more attack damage, now it's 25 crit. Crit damage is 25% more bonus damage than before, but doesn't turn into true, no longer doubles your crit. Cool. Efficient on its own, good stuff. Molten Edge, yeah, sure. Essence Reaver is the other first crit item to buy. And again, keep in mind, Stormrazor and all those heal upgrades are not gold efficient. Sorry about that. Finish your Reaver or finish your IE. Don't be an idiot. Buy it first. Fairly expensive, lower attack damage, has some CDR, now has crit. It's overall gold efficient, basic attacks refund mana. Sick item. It loses the crit conversion from the old Essence Reaver, but this is now a great starting item and it feels really good. I don't remember what this is compared to the old like 7.1 Essence Reaver, but this is still a great item that's going to feel really good. Ashe, Xayah, etc. Spear of Shogen is new Essence Reaver for the other folks, and it's keeping... it's a new item, right? So it's 3,400 gold, 60 AD, 250 health, 20 CDR. These all feel like appealing stats that fighters can feel excited, and they get Awakened Dragon, which is pretty hype. New Stormrazor is horribly gold efficient. This is not enough stats to pay for this, so you have to care about your 65 damage on hit, your Void Decaying slow, and your other energized effects being better. And I want to point out one final thing. Though this stacks and scales alongside you going IE into Rapid Fire or IE into Shiv, this item does not give crit, right? It is a BF Sword alongside Kirchai's Shard. So you are delaying DPS builds by getting Stormrazor. It might end up this item is a trap. That's a possibility. It might end up that you buy Stormrazor on frickin' Rengar to get a slow. Maybe not, but, you know, maybe. Who knows? Probably not, but maybe. There's an option for this because it turns out getting a slow on auto attack is good. We'll find out eventually. Either way, this is going to delay your crit scaling, but it's going to make your Chain Lightning slow. So that's pretty good. Like imagine Rapid Fire Caitlyn with the Stormrazor, shoots you from like 800 range, and you're slowed. Now her team caught you. Like there are good reasons to buy this item. It's just not DPS optimal really. Phantom Dancer I think is actually lines up in a really good spot. Dagger Brawler's Zeal. Zeal's cheaper. Yep, it's Rapid Fire Cannon stats now, but you get a very, very large shield that starts at 240 at level 9 and gains 40 per level until it reaches 600. That is a very, very, very big shield. It is Lifeline. You cannot buy this alongside Maw. So you have to choose a generic shield with no resists on it. You have to give up Maw to do it. Which means your only good MR items at that point are like Wit's End, Ma without the passive, Banshee's Veil, which feels really bad, and Mercurial Scimitar, which is only 35 MR. So this is but it allows you to still gain your 25 crit chance, which is a lot of DPS. But I want to point out that a lot of people are going to try to go for things like IE, Rapid Fire, Shiv, Phantom Dancer, and they'll be sitting on 80 bonus attack damage for a very, very, very long time. And if that's the build, it means you want to be getting... you actually might want to greed out and do the adaptive attack damage stats in your rune page, and make sure you're always going Gathering Storm, because you will be low on AD. You'll be sitting there with like 150% bonus attack speed, 100% crit chance, and you're at like 179 AD, which is far too low for those other stats being that high. You've missed out at that point. So something I want to point out about that is like, there's a decent chance that Marksman crit builds are really going to be hurting for raw attack damage, which interestingly enough does help Stormrazor because it has decent raw attack damage. But if your 4-item build is like IE, Shiv, Phantom Dancer, Essence Reaver, now you've got a good stat profile again. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting. Things to watch for. I'm glad this is getting buffed to be less stupid. I'm glad this is being buffed to getting buffed to be less stupid. Here's the Rapid Fire Hurricane changes, right, that are 200 gold less but 5 crit less, which is 1-to-1. Here's that Shiv gaining 5 attack speed because no one bought it. Oh yeah, here's an insane change. Last Whisper and Lord Dominic's. Look, Lord Dominic's is fine. It's 5 attack damage. Who cares? Not a huge deal. Mortar Mine are the same. But this going up 10 attack damage and 10 armor pen for 150 is absurdly efficient. Now that said, old Last Whisper was garbage on efficiency. That item was terrible. So this brings it more into the world of like being reasonable. But now this is really half a Lord Dominic's for half the cost. Like just straight up. It's now just half the item right away, which means now you can be more willing to sit on just Last Whisper. I'm pretty sure the way math works out that going from 0 to 20% armor pen is more important than going from 20 to 40. I believe that's true. I haven't done that kind of math in a while, but I'm quite confident that I'm accurate about this. So Last Whisper is now worth sitting on, and if you care about the slot efficiency, absolutely go upgrade, but you don't need to as heavily. Good to know. So here's them talking about build suggestions. IE first, Essence Reaver first, Ruin King into Hurricane, but then get an IE. Ruin King into Rage Blade, into sure Rapid Fire, whatever. Stormrazor is not the must rush. Recommended items have been updated. Okay, now we're not done yet. For some reason, they decided to put more champion changes afterwards. I don't actually like this formatting personally, my opinion, but whatever. All right, so Lissandra getting some cost on Q and damage off on E. It appears to me that Lissandra's most common ability order is indeed E max second. So here's the Q cost, 0 to 80, or 0 to 8, slash 80, because 80 is the cost, but 80 is the difference. 0 to 40 damage off that E is a really, really big deal. This is a pretty big nerf to her wave clear. Also doesn't mean all that much to the champion because some people were still doing... Luden's Echo anyway, so they had the mana to spare, but if you're doing Proto Belt, you are going to feel this mana pinch. E was super safe wave clear, but that's going away. Super safe wave clear is just boring. It's going to matter. Lissandra was another queen of pro play, 81% presence, and completely functional in solo queue, 50 to 51% in mid and top lane. So she can deal with small nerfs and it's fine. Keep in mind that she now gets to be also a counterpick to Irelia. And also somewhat of a counterpick to Akali, who is going to be revealed on her turret. If she dives, you can stun her and she'll get hit by the turret. So that's kind of interesting. Next up, nerfs to Sion. A flat 10, aka 30 damage off the Q. Keep in mind, Sion Q has a total attack damage ratio, and that attack damage ratio scales with rank. So here's how much damage Sion actually lost, and it's not much, right? Like this looks really big, and 90 to 3, like 90 becomes 60. This is even 10% off right here, and it's not really that. Half the damage comes from the AD ratio, and then a further half can come from you building more attack damage. But still, 17 to 5% is something that matters, that exists. It's there. Also, a minor cooldown nerf on the W. I didn't check, but I'm pretty confident you max W second, so That's definitely meaningful. It's good to see more windows against Sion. Keep in mind that he's definitely really, really in there in the world. He's 71% presence in Pro, which is lower than I honestly expected, based on how much it feels like we're seeing him. But and to me, like I feel like anything below 80% in a patch is not ubiquitous, right? So like Sion at 71, I think is reasonable and not like definitely requiring of changes. But that said, when Aatrox and Akali and Lissandra all get nerfs, it means Sion's priority rises because who's the next best champion? It's probably Sion. Urgot's going to be king of the League of Legends coming in because he's not getting changed yet. We'll probably see that in 9.4. But either way, Sion, 71% in Pro is certainly pretty high. I think reasonable to see. I don't even think that you have to call them preemptive nerfs. I think he was clearly the best performing tank, and it's okay to nerf that. But I'm also glad that tanks are viable in Pro, that we're seeing just a couple of them in that top lane. Either way, he was also a 53% win rate top laner. So certainly a champion that I would argue is just simply too strong. One thing I find kind of quizzical is it took so long for people to start playing Sion and Pro. Like, I don't know if you remember this, but like, if you remember, it was like All-Star 2 years ago when we first did Runes Reforged, and people were playing Emax Comet Sion. And it was like, oh, of course they're playing Sion. Emax is overpowered, and Comet is overpowered, and Scorch is overpowered. And then Comet and Scorch all got nerfed, and people were still playing Emax Comet Sion. And it was like, well, of course they're playing Sion. The E hitbox is bugged, and it's too wide, and that bug got fixed, and Sion's win rate went down 0.5%. And they're still playing Emax Sion with Comet and Scorch. And it's like, well, of course they're playing Emax Sion. E is too strong, so then they nerfed E and buffed Q. And then they're just playing Qmax Sion. And like his win rate the entire time has been 53% across all of this, even before Runes Reforged. And it was like, yeah, Sion's always been this good. You could just play Sion. But like pro players ubiquitous are like, well, it's only in pro play because E is so, okay, that's nerfed. Okay, well, it's only in pro play. Okay, that got nerfed. Well, it's only in, it's like, no, it's just Sion's good. Just stop. Just Sion's good. Play Sion. And so anyway, the whole point I'm coming to is like, I feel like tanks can be at 47% win rate and be pro viable. Like look at Ornn or Maokai across history, or Gnar or Nautilus back when. Like we've got Nautilus back to like a 50% win rate top laner, and pro is still not playing him, and I'm pretty sure they're wrong. Pretty sure that champion's great. But either way, Sion is definitely overtuned for a tank. Like it feels to me like tanks are one of the classes that get to live sub 50. And like it's weird because I keep like listing classes that just get to live sub 50. And I feel like at a certain point I'm going to say, well, most champions do that, but I still feel like teamfight mages are going to be above 50. But anyway, whatever. It's a topic for a different time. Either way, Sion's overpowered and he's getting nerfed, and that's a good thing. Cool. Next up, more nerfs to Zyra, which definitely had to happen. Something I found interesting is she is still a 53% win rate support. The mana regen nerfs did basically nothing because of course they didn't. She's not seen in pro at all, but she's an absolute terror in solo queue and really, really good. What's interesting is people have finally learned this. So looking back 4 patches, Zyra's banner was around 5% before, which is pretty nominal. And it's climbed up to like 13% as of a couple days ago. People are realizing that Zyra is actually the best champion in the game. That's true. This is actually a bigger nerf than it looks like. You see 4 to 9, and these numbers get really high, and you're like, that means nothing. But it's actually fairly meaningful. Keep in mind, it's actually pretty likely that Zyra gets a plant to spawn without hitting you with her spells or auto attacks, and so you're simply only taking this damage. Now, there are 2 depressing factors here. One is she's still going to trigger Spell Thief's damage on you, and that's a significant portion of her damage output. What's kind of unlucky is that the base damage is so low, it's being strictly like carried by Spell Thieves, which actually further nerfs mid Zyra, which is kind of too bad. And also the AP ratio, of course, went nowhere, and nor did her base plant damage. So if you are landing good combos, this doesn't mean quite as much. You have ability power like you're playing mid Zyra, this doesn't matter quite as much. And for real support Zyra, who has Spell Thieves, this is really strong. Like, it's 4 damage off. And it's 4 damage off every auto attack. Keep in mind that Zyra plants will not trigger Spell Thieves twice on the same target. Any individual plant can only trigger that effect once. I believe it can do it once per target. So if it switches, you can get another trigger. But like if I summon a Q and it spits you 3 times, I lose 12 damage and only triggered Spell Thieves once. So like, you know, there is some level of this mattering and, you know, cool. 4 to 9 damage based on rank, 17 to 8% based on like level. That's decent. Okay, so there you go. There's that. Another nice change is now it tracks how far behind you are when you die so that you don't immediately get your farming bounty. This is a good thing. This is nice. This will make things feel a lot less wonky where, you know, you get tower dove and TV back to like a giant wave and immediately accrue a bounty. This won't happen anymore. This is really good. So you'll keep this buffer through your death so that you don't just accrue what feel like unfair bounties. One thing I do want to point out, and I don't know, like I think this is okay, but I know it does feel kind of frustrating to people, is you are not compared to your specific lane opponent. Like you can be going equal in lane and gain a bounty because your other teammates are winning lane, which I know that can feel bad, but I don't know. I don't feel like it's that big. Like I don't think it's that big enough of a deal personally, but I mean I understand why it can feel frustrating. Loading screen update. I kind of wish they did screenshots here. You know, that would have been nice, but whatever. Borders update, load in progress is tracked. And now you can click on them in the loading screen and it shows info like for your teammates, champion mastery, honor, ranked armor level, etc., etc. And your opponents, you get that stuff. So that's cool. Some bug fixes. To LeBlanc, Relic Shield doesn't lie to you post game anymore. That's nice. Cool stuff. I get some skins coming out. Heart Priest of Fiora, Heartbreaker Vi. Chromas. That's the patch. All right, friends. 9.3 TLDR. Aatrox is going to overall heal probably a little bit less throughout the laning phase, but in bad matches will do better. This could easily buff him in solo queue and nerf him in pro. This is going to take some time to learn. He can no longer double dash during a combo without max CDR, but has a lot more dashes overall. Honestly, this could end up being Aatrox buffs. I'm not sure. It's going to take some learning. Next up, Akali is getting strictly nerfed. This regen buff does not make up for this regen loss. And this is a strict nerf because it reveals under turrets and the cooldown is worse. Next up is Camille. She no longer stuns jungle minions, jungle monsters, or overall minions. She's already a weak jungler in solo queue. She's going to be gone from solo queue. And she will drop a lot in pro presence as well. She's still a viable top laner though. Go ahead and play her. Next up, Cassiopeia, getting some more nerfs to the QW max build. I think it will still be her best build, but it will be a lot closer now, and she will not be nearly as broken. These nerfs are big enough, I think, to drop her from the 99% pro presence she is right now. Big changes to Irelia. This is pretty close to power neutral, but I think slightly negative because you require 5 stacks to get in. Overall, these are about the same numbers, just kind of switched around. This shouldn't mean too much. Baseline tankiness going up. Blade Surge is no longer garbage against minions. And she actually goes back to her sort of full damage reduction against physical damage, but she's now counterpickable by magic damage. So this is neutral, this is a buff, and this is essentially counterpick. So if you're playing Irelia against physical damage champions, you will be stronger. I don't think there's a way that's not true, because these are all just simply too good. But if she's counterpicked by a mage, it will be weaker. This is going to make her pro presence very odd, because it makes her a red side pick once you know that there's physical damage solo laners. We'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting. But I think these are good changes to buff her in solo queue and keep her beatable. Big crit item reworks. Basically, always start either Infinity Edge first or Essence Reaver first. Riven and Jackson Co. got old Essence Reaver, or 9.2 Essence Reaver as Spear of Shogen. Go buy that. Stormrazor, do not buy it first. Buy it third at earliest third. It does not have gold efficiency on its own. Fendermancer is now a Hex Drinker, but to all damage types. It's basically a Sterix Gauge, I should say. Fendermancer is now a Sterix Gauge item. You can buy that if you need durability. And overall, these are all kind of fiddly changes otherwise. Again, start IE or start Essence Reaver, and do not rush Stormrazor. Lissandra losing some mana efficiency on Q and some wave clear on E will lower her in pro a fair bit, and she'll still be reasonable in solo queue, maybe 49. Sion deserving of nerfs. These are not as big as you think. More than half the damage of the Q comes from the base AD ratio. So yes, you're losing 30 damage in a full charge, but you're not losing half the damage of rank 1. You're losing like a quarter of the damage of rank 1 and very little at the end of the game. It's like 5%, but this nerf matters for laning phase. Zyra deserving of some more nerfs. She will still be above 50%. She is still going to be worth playing. I recommend you play Zyra if you want elo early in the season. Zyra is very, very strong. This is not going to be enough to drop her below 50%. But hey, nerfs are nerfs. And finally, if you're having a very bad laning phase, you are not going to be so sad about getting killed because you will build up a negative buffer about being behind in farm, and the game will remember that when you die. Pretty load screen, some bug fixes, some skins. Thanks for watching. If you want to see part 2 of my base stats video, I've put together most of my thoughts at this point, and I'll probably record something sometime this week or early next week. So I'll see you.